All right. Welcome back to the channel. We're going to talk about an obscure topic today, which is Jarret Hurd. The former 154-pound champion calls out Jrock, said that after this fight with Francisco Santiago, that he's going to be ready to fight Jrock. I don't believe it. I think he need to move his behind up to 160. But seeing as we have a rematch coming up this weekend at 154 pounds with Jamal Charlo and Tony Harrison, that this fight between Jrock and Jarret Hurd is relevant too. Shout out to my man Nino Brown Boxing and the rise of the 154-pound division. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel, subscribers. If you are not subscribed, please subscribe. Hit the bell icon so you can be notified of when we release more videos. Also, hit the join button if you are a longtime subscriber to the channel. It will definitely help support the causes. We are supporting newly professional fighters, helping them get their gloves, get the training expenses that they need so that they can grow in the sport. And every little bit helps. So if you would join as a member, that would be greatly appreciated. Also, thank you to everybody in the Patreon that also contributes, as well as the super chats in the live streams. Thank you guys so much. Make sure you come to OG Boxing Talk this Sunday, where we wrap up the week in boxing with an excellent panel of Blood Boxing, my partner Blood Boxing, KQKC Boxing, Trap House, and my man Curtis Anderson, the boxing historian. You guys will really have a good time in that live stream, and we're going to be covering the aftermath of the 154-pound rematch of Jamal Charlo and Tony Harrison. Should be an excellent fight. I cannot wait for it. Been waiting a long time for it. But in connection to that, we have also a significant 154-pound fight that hopefully will be taking place in 2020. And that is the rematch of Jarret Hurd versus Julian Jrock Williams. That would be for the IBF and the WBA 154-pound titles. Jarret Hurd was the WBA IBF 154-pound champion, got his belts in not an easy fashion, right? Definitely one of the rising stars in boxing by beating Austin Trout, beating Landy Lara. You know, those guys are no slouches, experienced older fighters. Jrock was walking to him, taking it to him, getting hit a lot, but at the same time, showing that he had a good amount of boxing skills and was just too big, too strong, overpowered him. And so he was looking like the killer in the 154-pound division. And you had he and Jamal Charlo, they were supposed to be fighting one another, but then once Jarret Hurd, got a little taste of that Hollywood, became the man because he was unified, Jarret Hurd started talking a little iffy about fighting Jamal Charlo. As a result, Jamal Charlo, the WBC champion, goes off and fights Tony Harrison. And before that, Jarret Hurd, instead of fighting Jamal Charlo, fights Jrock. Now, Jrock had already looked like he might be vulnerable to Jarret Hurd because he had been knocked out by Jamal Charlo, who moved up from 154 to 160 pounds, and he's now the WBC champion at 160 pounds. But when he got chin checked by Jamal, hey man, Jrock lost a lot of this luster, a lot of the shine that he had before that as he was coming up. Excellent Philly fighter. The first time that I really heard about him, man, I heard Nazim Richardson talking about him and saying what an excellent fighter he is, what a good technician he is, and how well he was gonna do in 154 pounds, right? But that all came crashing to the floor when Jamal Charlo had him crash to the floor. So Jrock took that fight. Now my understanding is that his trainer at the time said, nah, man, you don't want to fight Jrock. Don't fight Jrock. Fight somebody else. I don't know if he wanted him to fight Ernesto. I don't know if he wanted him to fight Jamal Charlo or whatever, but Ernesto was like, that's a bad matchup. Shouldn't take that fight. So when that fight happened, Jarret Hurd, of course, was favored to win. I guess he supposed he was going to walk through Jrock and knock him out. But that wasn't the case. Jrock beat the dude from pillar to post. Beat him I think he won every round and was sticking his tongue out. He was fighting on the inside, would just pivot out of the way. And just had Jarret Hurd following him around, even in the inside, following him around. Just too skilled for him. Tough, skilled, young. And the difference between Jrock and Jarret Hurd and Arislandi Lara and Austin Trout is that he still had the energy and the youth to continue to stay strong through the entire fight. And his just shiftiness and his talent, his skill on the inside beat Jarret Hurd. Jarret Hurd wanted to go right back in there with Jrock, but then thought better of it. Took some time off, cut the yellow off of his cut that yellow fro down. I changed trainers. I don't know if changing trainers was a good move or not. I don't know whether or not people are gonna, whoever he's with, I don't know who he's with. Forgive me, but I heard that he's a solid trainer, very technically sound trainer, and that but I don't know if there's enough time to really fix the fundamental flaws that you see in Jarret Hurd. And I had said this for a while, the biggest of which is that he plays defense with his face. He just figures that he just absorbs punches and lets the guy almost punch himself out. At the same time, putting a lot of work in it himself and overpowers the guy. I don't think any way, shape, or form that's gonna do the job against Jrock. And I don't know how quickly, the new trainer is going to be able to develop those skills in him. But that said, hey man, he took time off. He's got a training camp coming up for Santiago. He'll get another training camp for Jrock, and then there you go. And we'll see if he has enough time. But that I do believe will set up either way it goes. Whether it is Jrock getting Jarret Hurd getting his belt back, or Jrock, losing his, that should set up by that time, probably the early, that might be early 2021, where you could get the winner of these two fights, the Jrock Hurd fight and the Charlo versus Harrison fight. 154 pounds, unlike almost every other division. These guys that have belts are really, I believe they're willing to fight each other. The only holdup was, of course, when you had the two upsets last year. Where you had Jarret Hurd losing to Jrock, you have Jamel Charlo losing to Tony Harrison. Of all the people the way that I think it's going to play out, I think it's going to be Jrock and Jamel. If we can get Jrock and Jamel, I think that would be one of the best 154-pound championships fights in memory. There's been some good 154-pounders. Now I know I'm going to get blasted in the comment section from this by Nino Brown or Kurt Anderson, somebody that's more familiar with the history of 154 pounds than I am, because I always considered it kind of like, a tweener division, right? You had you've had great 154 pounders, right? Like the one that comes to mind most is Winky Wright. But Winky Wright was just kind of caught between the 147 pounders and the 160 pounders, literally and figuratively, right? Because you had Bernard Hopkins up at 160. You had Bernard Hopkins up at 160 pounds. You had Oscar De La Hoya, Felix Tito Trinidad, Ike Corte, Shane Mosley, and those guys down there at 147 pounds. Oscar De La Hoya never wanted to give Winky Wright a shot at 154 because Oscar was going to lose to Winky Wright, right? But now you have a crop of extremely good, a group of 154 pounders that are excellent, that are making 154 pounds worth watching in and of itself. And 154 pounds is one of the, I don't know if you guys recall, but one of the best moments, I think it was 2018, was that pretty much a virtual tournament that took place at 154 pounds on Showtime, where you had Jamel Charlo fought, Trout fought Jarret Hurd, God, who was the other? Aris Landy Lara fought Gaucher. Jrock was not on it. Jrock was still building back up at the time. And also, and I forgot, there's another guy that's there who also got knocked out by a Charlo, but Jermel Charlo, who's on his way building himself back up, which is Erickson Lubin. Right, there's just a ton of talent at 154 pounds. Eventually, these guys are going to start moving up to 160 pounds, which is why I believe that Jamal Charlo is probably going to stay put at 160 pounds and wait for the PBC fighters that are at 154 to settle this out and move up. Because I can see Jrock moving up to 160 pounds. I can definitely see Hurd moving up to 160 pounds. Eventually, Erickson Lubin is going to move up to 160 pounds. So there are going to be 147 pounders, likewise, moving up to 154. Right? At very least, Errol Spence Jr. for sure is going to be moving up to 154 pounds before too long. You even got an outside chance of Terrence Crawford showing up there as well. So I'm really excited about the 154 pound division. There's a lot of really good fights, a lot of good conversations. Let me know what you think in the comment section about the route Jarret Hurd is taking and whether he needs to go with Jrock, whether or not he even needs to bother with a fight with Jrock or just move up and fight at 160. Let me get your thoughts on that. And with that, I'm out. Peace.